Mirë se erdhët në Public Square, unë jam Ditmir Bushati. Cilat janë shanset që Shqipëria apo vendet tjera të rajonit bëhen pjesë të Bashkimit Evropian brenda 2030-s? Po flitet shumë për një kontekst ri politik në Europë, për një frymë tre politike në Europë, e nxitur kryesisht nga situata e sigurisë, që nisi që me pushtimin e Ukrainës nga ana e Rusisë, dhe që një mënyrë e një tjetër mund të ndikohet edhe nga ndryshimi politik në Shtetet Bashkuara të Amerikës dhe nevoja që ka Bashkimi Evropian për të forcuar, le të themi, rradhët e veta. Sa i përgatitur është vetë Bashkimi Evropian? Cila është ndjesia brenda vendeve anëtare të Bashkimit Evropian për këtë gjë, në kushtet e këtyre ndryshimeve politike mjaft të vrullshme? Sa përgatitur janë vendet kandidate që synojnë realisht antarësimin? Ku jemi me reformat? Çfarë na mungon? Për çfarë kemi bërë përpara dhe cila mund të jetë rruga më e qëndrueshme në këtë proces? Për gjitha këto, sot kam ftuar jo vetëm një njohës të shkëlqyer të procesit të zgjerimit, por edhe njëri i cili e ka kaluar vetë në lëkurën e tij të gjithë këtë proces. Kam ftuar Štefan Fülen, ish komisioneri i zgjerimit Komisionit Evropian, një njohës i shkëlqyer edhe i realitetit në vendet tona. Welcome to Public Square, Štefan. It's a great pleasure to have you in this discussion.
It's a great pleasure, Ditmir, to be with you.
I would like to start our conversation by making a very short comment. During my professional and political career, I've been working with lots of enlargement commissioners and also high reps. And let me say at the very outset that unfortunately you were the last commissioner who truly believed in the enlargement. I haven't met yet Marta Kos, and this is the reason why I wanted to have you on Public Square and to have a proper discussion about the enlargement in the Western Balkans, but also enlargement in general, considering also neighborhood policy countries. What's the stage of enlargement in 2025, Štefan?
Challenging. We all feel that something needs to happen. Some of us talking about momentum, a new one, suitable for enlargement, but I'm afraid we are still not yet there, because I'm not questioning at all the determination of Albania and other Western Balkan countries and even the Ukraine. But I'm hesitant to call a momentum stage of enlargement when I see the European Union members still hesitating to make their contribution to the enlargement. Because one thing, and you remember we talked about it at our time, it's not only important for the candidate countries to prepare for the membership. It's also important for the EU institutions, for the EU member states to prepare for the new members. And while I have seen a lot of focus and actually a positive development on the side of the candidate countries, I am still waiting for a clear signal from the EU member states that they do not just refer to the enlargement as a priority, but they start to make the concrete steps for the EU to be ready. These two processes should go in parallel.
What do you mean exactly by concrete steps? It's a question of political will, or it's just an operational issue? Because if I'm referring to President Macron and France in general, they have been insisting on some kind of a pause in the enlargement process through different initiatives, either European political community or a different kind of enlargement. Then you have countries like Hungary that, although are having their own experience within EU, sometimes a troubling experience with other EU member states, they have been vocal supporters of enlargement. So what's the mood within European Union? It's a question of political will or an operational issue?
It's complex. It's difficult. It's not that easy. I think you will hardly find a member state which opposes or questions the enlargement as such. But number one, not all EU member states understand yet what needs to be done for the EU to be functioning organization after, if not all, then some candidate countries become a member. A and B, there is also some kind of dichotomy on the countries. You referred to Hungary. I mean, I see my own country, the Czech Republic, as actually very supportive also. But those are the countries which used to say the following: we are the staunchest supporters of enlargement. And in the same sentence, they say, but when it comes, to the EU reform and so on, we still want to keep the veto power over some important issues. It seems actually a reasonable political statement, but when you see at the situation on the ground, you realize that in one sentence you say, I am in favor of it, and you kill it in the second part of the sentence. Because if anyone would believe that this new wave of enlargement would happen without a serious reflection on when and how to use the veto power, we will not move forward. That's why I'm saying, the process needs to be taken seriously on both sides. Ditmir, when we were talking years ago, we very much often used the term engine of enlargement. What was the engine of enlargement? The engine of enlargement was that once the country like Albania has fulfilled a certain criteria, to get closer to the European Union acquis, it was actually taken closer to the European acquis. A new chapter has been opened, a new policy area, the access has been granted to Albania. So the politicians in the Western Balkans, in Albania specifically, were always able to say, listen, it pays off to reform. It pays to work hard to adopt the European acquis, because these are the concrete benefits. The engine of enlargement has motivated effect on the candidate countries. That has disappeared fully. Okay, and without restarting this engine, we would hardly move forward. And one of the important elements to restart the engine is for those EU member states who are subject of this dichotomy to realize that now is the time that as much as we want the candidate countries to take seriously their preparation process for them to become members, we, the European Union member states, need to take seriously this process of adapting our institutions, the way we're doing the business, for the more member states, becoming really a contribution, a positive development for the EU.
When you speak about the motivation effect, and I couldn't agree more with you, don't you think that the lack or the absence of motivation effect has created a status quo in the case of Western Balkans, or a zone of comfort, whereas you don't necessarily need to reform, but you need to sell this Europeanization, or you need to fake the reform process for the sake of a shallow stability, but nothing is moving in substance?
You're absolutely right, okay? And I'm afraid we still have not been able effectively erase the effect of these policies. You know, quite frankly, what has happened in the European Union is when we and other 9 countries joined after the fall of Iron Curtain, the enlargement process was not really anything really sophisticated. It was about the ticking the boxes. Have you done this? Have you adopted this legislation? Have you created these institutions? It is being staffed, financed, is it independent, and so on. But no one has checked on the ground. And we are talking about the countries in transformation. Okay? So we got the 10 new members who then had to go through the enlargement process also already being a members, which of course created a certain bad feeling in the European Union, because, I mean, one could say we were not fully prepared at that time for becoming an effective members from the very beginning. 2 of us, and with the assistance of other politicians from the Western Balkans, you remember at our time we have reformed the chapters, we have reformed the accession process, we have put forward the fundamental first. We made everything possible to take the lessons learned of the previous enlargement very, very seriously. And this process and the enlargement is there, is functioning. Today is completely different from the ticking the boxes in the past, okay? So the problem of this engine of enlargement stopping was not on the methodology, or even on the determination of the. You were the politician, Ditmir, and you probably were the one of those who would, if not telling me right to my eyes, but indirectly, yes, Stefan, you want this us to do and this reform and so on. But for me to be a successful politician, to persuade my citizens, voters, and so on, I need also to show them that there is the light at the end of the tunnel, that there is a progress, that if we do this, we move closer to the European Union, you know, and that was what was missing. And I'm still looking for the strong proof that it is there. There are definitely positive signs. Today, the security aspect is one of the very big importance for the European Union to finish the job, because when the wind is strong, you know, you either abandon certain projects or you go after them with a bigger determination and strong will. And I see the will and intention of the EU to go in that direction. But, you know, we need that engine to restart. We need those 2 processes go in parallel, step by step, for us to say, job done. The momentum is not only something we talk about, it is really there, it is working.
Speaking about the wind, as you mentioned, and the political will, we have a new security situation in Europe since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, but we have also a new president sitting in the White House at a times where EU is somehow geopolitically divided, And there is also the rise of the extreme right in different EU member states that is trying to align themselves with Elon Musk or Donald Trump in the States. What is your assessment, having into account this situation? How the wind and the will play in these circumstances? What's your take?
I was interested, I mean, how you would formulate your question, I mean, after putting these important, extremely important developments. Listen, I'm actually one of those who take these two extremely important development as actually having the potential of moving the things forward. And I'm talking about things because it's much bigger than just the enlargement. But I strongly believe that we will see the continuation of this renewed commitment and energy we have seen after the Russian invasion into Ukraine to continue. And I believe I like to see the glass full or half full rather than half empty. I believe that Trump is the one with whom we could change this current limbo when it comes to the Ukrainian conflict, and not at the expense necessarily of the Ukrainians' friends and colleagues. The next weeks and months will show, but I'm positive in this regard, and I have also underlined from the very beginning whether Russia attacked Ukraine, and we have made it clear that we want Ukraine indeed not only to be promised to be sometimes a part of the European Union, but we have started to make the concrete steps that it's important that the Western Balkans see this as a chance for their long sort of ignored calls for becoming the part of the European Union, you know, moving it very high on the EU agenda, and I see that happening. So I hope it's going to continue.
And speaking about the way how things are currently working within EU family, a few weeks ago, former Prime Minister of Italy, Enrico Letta, published a report that was commissioned by European Commission on the future of internal market of European Union. And apart from many recommendations for the expansion of the internal market, having also the freedom of education as the fifth freedom, he was also analyzing and coming up with few recommendations as far as enlargement is concerned. And two main areas of interventions, according to him, are first, one in relation to veto, abolishing individual veto and opting for a collective veto. At least 3 member states are needed to stop certain processes in the enlargement for a given country, for a candidate country. And second, he was speaking also, and he was proposing also an enlargement facility. So basically, to mitigate the financial losses and the benefits of current EU member states, mostly coming from eastern part of European Union, due to a possible accession of Ukraine and other countries. What's your take on this?
I think the both reports of those two distinguished former Italian prime ministers are important because they looked at the situation in a complex way, and they have involved this element of enlargement as something what is a part of our everyday agenda, and this is extremely important. The second extremely important element is that they have also made it clear to those in charge of the enlargement file, listen guys, this is not the fact that someone a few years ago has written the enlargement book, that we need to follow it word by word. That's not like that. There are new challenges, there are new opportunities. Let's make the enlargement policy the policy which is evolving in a way that reflects both the new challenges and new opportunities. Okay, and make it not only looked, but make it in such a way that it's attractive for Albania and other countries from the very first step. And there are still going to be a number of the steps, and some of them difficult. But that it's interesting that they become a part of a certain policies well before they become the full members, that they will become recipients of the assistance of a sector resources the EU has, and not when they become the EU member states formally, but in the process.
One very important element of the EU accession process, but not only, is also regional cooperation. And I remember very well your efforts for the establishment of Western Balkan 6 as an informal platform, and I know that your efforts have been surrounded by various doubts at the time about this regional initiative, but then when this was a precursor of the Berlin process that had somehow the full backing of Berlin, and many actors were sitting around the table, immediately all leaders of the region accepted this initiative. But again, looking at the regional cooperation 12, 13 years later, there are not that much improvements. So there is still an unfinished statehood project in relation to the unfinished conflict or the dialogue between Serbia and Kosovo. There is still a very problematic situation in terms of functioning as a state of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And in a way or another, this is hampering also the regional progress of Western Balkans towards European Union. But on the other hand, EU has somehow failed also to come up with a united front in resolving these two, let's say, critical issues, and then dealing also with the critical situation in the eastern part of bloc. So, what would be your piece of advice? What EU and Western Balkans can do better in order to overcome such a situation?
You were right that the beginning of the process of regional cooperation was not easy. But look, the EU and its progress is very often compared to driving the bicycle. You know, that the EU has to evolve permanently, otherwise risking that it would not fit in facing and addressing the new challenges and so on. The same goes for the regional cooperation. It needs a new inputs here and there. And we were talking about those two reports. We were talking about the new thinking in the enlargement. And I'm certain that you will see in the months to come the new, not only resources, but ideas, the interaction with the EU institutions, with the EU, which would give a new inspiration for regional cooperation. That's the first important point. The second important point, listen, for me, the regional cooperation was always about a strong element of cooperation itself, but a certain element of competition too. It's in the healthy competition, which is going on even when you become the EU member states, where sort of the new ideas, new ways are being sort of determined and so on. So I am hopeful very much that the leaders, once they will be looking at these competing elements, they will not forget the importance that at the end of the day, there needs to be a very effective and reasonable regional cooperation, which would make your path toward the EU membership more effective and faster.
What is your forecast? If there will be a political will from EU member states, coupled also with determination of real reforms in the candidate countries, is it doable that in 5 years' time we might see countries, or I don't know, Montenegro or Albania or other countries in the region as members of European Union, or at least in the finishing line of the EU membership process? Do you see this doable?
I see it doable. I see it actually not only doable, but as the only way how to save the relevance of the European Union. A failure here would have dramatic consequences, not only for those who are still knocking on the doors and whom I respect wholeheartedly, but also on the European Union itself. I remember the times, you probably too, when we were angry sometimes about the Paris-Berlin cooperation, because those two member states sometimes have presented us, oh, guys, I mean, there is a problem and there is a solution, okay? And we were saying, oh, guys, I mean, this should not work like this, and so on. That disappeared. And I think our concern should be even bigger than it was some years ago. That puts von der Leyen, the president of the Commission, very much forward, other heads of the EU institutions. I hope very much that what we see today, the lack of politicians, courageous politicians with a strong political idea and also strong backing, this is important, not as a result of the European Union development, when we always try to agree on everything, but very often on the lowest denominator. I hope very much that this efforts of ours does not take away from us the courageous politicians who would stand and tell, you know, their electorates and other citizens, listen, guys, these are the important issues to tackle. Otherwise, you know, we will be irrelevant.
Thank you, Štefan. It was a pleasure to have you on.
It was a great pleasure to see you again, and through you also to send my best regards to your political colleagues, but also to citizens of Albania, but also all others who are sort of listening and seeing us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All the best. Ditmir.